Welcome to House Upcliff, and this is kind of like a basic little video guide on the genre itself. Okay, so what exactly is a genre? Okay, so in the Game of Thrones case at least, it's basically just a bigger group within the Roblox Game of Thrones like platform, and it has several smaller groups within it. There's a lot of different Game of Thrones genres throughout Roblox. Each house is typically just in one, because it's against genre rules to be in multiple, and you can be in as many genres as you want. So houses are one of the several smaller groups within the bigger group, known as a genre, and houses are groups led by a lord or a lady designed to grow their power through either gaining territory, gaining more titles, whatever it may be. Mercenaries are groups led by a leader. Typically they don't have like a standardized name, and they're designed to profit based on like helping houses during war, helping protect people, or just like helping to kill people, whatever the case may be. Religions are groups sometimes led by genres, sometimes not led by genres. They're typically focused on one of the faiths in the Game of Thrones universe. More often than not, they're going to be led by the genres. However, occasionally this differs. Then there's factions. Factions are genre-run organizations, such as the King's Guard, which it's run by the genre ultimately. However, the king can see fit to put people in or take people out, but at the end of the day, it's owned by the genre, and so the genre does have control over it. King's Guard are the king's sworn swords. Basically just means they're knights who will protect the king at all costs, as well as the queen, hand of the queen, and the crown prince, or whoever else it may be. Then there's the City Watch, also known as the CW, just like King's Guard known as KG. CW are kind of the guardsmen of King's Landing, which is the main game that we go on to like rally and everything. So City Watch, my bad. City Watch, otherwise known as CW, they're basically the guards of the city. They make sure all the laws are upheld. They make sure everything's going smoothly. Nobody's getting arcade or random killed, whatever. Arcade means random killed. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. They're kind of just there to help with whatever need be. Sometimes they're a little bit corrupt though. Sometimes they're not. It's kind of just depends on who's the leader of it. And then there's also occasionally Night Watch, and they don't really have a point. Like they do in some genres, but most genres they just don't have a point. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I probably am, but that's alright. I'm gonna move on. What are the different regions? So in the Seven Kingdoms, which is actually like a lot more than 7 regions, but in the Seven Kingdoms, there is quite a few different regions. Sorry. Okay, so there's the North, which is the most northmost region, obviously. The North is full of northern men. They typically don't go for crown because they're just so far away. Possible titles you'll hear about them are Lord Paramount of the North, Warden of the North, anything like that. The Vale is the region that we are in. It's known as the Vale, obviously. They're known as Valemen. Dorne is the Dornish, and they are typically ruled by a prince or princess instead of like a Lord Paramount. Like they still hold the title Lord Paramount, but they go by prince or princess because it's like in Dornish fashion. Then there's the Iron Islands. They're a little series of islands. A lot of them are like tough, whatever. They're really good at sea, typically, sea fighting, whatever. Yeah. Then there's the Reach. It's like a really flourishing place, super pretty, super everything. Reachman. Yep. Then there's the Riverlands. There's a lot of rivers there. It's pretty self-explanatory here. And the Riverlands aren't really talked about too much. Like, I very rarely see somebody talk about the Riverlands, not gonna lie to you. Then there's the Stormlands. It's pretty close to the Crownlands. I think it's one of the closest regions, if not the closest, to, well, other than the Crownlands, of course, to King's Landing. The Stormlands are typically ruled by, like, a Baratheon, or, yeah, mostly just Baratheon, not gonna lie to you. They're really, really close. They're known as the Stormlands because they have a lot of storms because they're like right on the sea. Then there's the Westerlands. They're the westmost region, obviously, Warden of the West, whatever. They're typically run by a Lannister. Yeah. And there's the Crownlands. It's the place where the crown holds, like, the crown. So the Lord Paramount of the Crownlands is always going to be the Crown House. So it's always going to be the house of the King or the Queen. One of the different titles. Sorry, I already let you see that slide, but it's okay. I'll go over it still. So the King or Queen of the Seven Kingdoms is going to be the person who holds the Crown House. They're the leader of the Crown House normally, or the head of the Crown House, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes this isn't the case, but majority of the time is. The King or the Queen holds the ultimate power in Westeros. They can make their own rules. They can appoint their own Kingsguard. Occasionally City Watch, though not always. They are immune to most laws. Then there's a Hand of the King or the Queen. This is known as the Hand House occasionally, not always, but typically it's known as that. It can occasionally be the same person as, like, from the Crown House. So if, say, the King or the Queen wanted to appoint, like, one of their kids as Hand of the King or the Queen, they could. Not the end of the world if they do. Normally just known as the Hand. Doesn't normally have the full title. Or alternatively Lord Hand, whatever it may be. So the Hand kind of just oversees the small council, which we're going to get into right now. The small council is full of a bunch of different people who just advise the king and queen about, like, whatever the concerns are currently. It's a title appointed by the king or the queen. You can't, like, war for these titles, these top three. Well, you can war for the king, obviously, but you can't war for Hand or small council because that's kind of appointed by the king or the queen. And then there's Lord or Lady Paramount. This is a ward for a title. You can absolutely war for this as well as king or queen. Lord or Lady Paramount just basically means you are, like, the paramount person in your region. You have the most territory, or you have the most allies in that region, whatever it may be. Depends on the genre. Then there's the Lord or Lady. So some genres allow you to be a Lord or a Lady if you own a holding, some don't. So this is, again, dependent on the genre, but a Lord or a Lady will always be the head of their house. So a head of a house, Lord or Lady, is typically the Lord or Lady of their capital, which for us is Witch Isle. For other examples, Baratheon would be Storm's End, stuff like that. Winterfell would be Stark's. So the Lord or Lady just means head of the house, or if it says Lord Lady of Holding, whatever holding it may be, that just means that they are the ruler of that specific holding, but they're not the head of the house necessarily. Sir or Dame, that is going to be the title for knights. It's one of the first nobility titles that you receive. You've been knighted, yay. Other stuff that you should know. King's Landing, also known as KL, is the main place that we all meet. Anytime you get pinged, it'll probably be to go King's Landing or to go to a combat training or a random event, whatever it may be. There will be another video about all the Upcliffian stuffs, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.